Welcome to Paint Ed. PCA provides painting contractors with connections they need to grow their business. To find out more and to become a member, visit pcapainted.org. Find more great content just like this on PCA Overdrive. A subscription to the platform is included with membership. For all you non-members out there, sign up for a free trial. PCA Overdrive is available on the App Store and Google Play. This episode is brought to you by Pittsburgh Paints and Bear.
You need to decide what should be a performance metric, is kind of an expectation for their job, and what should be a compensation metric for their role. Welcome back to another episode of the Elite Business Advice Podcast. My name is Chris Moore, the founder of Elite Business Advisors, your host here for the podcast. We all know that we need to manage people in our business, but the question is, how do we do it? What does it look like? What are some things that we need to put in place in order to do this well? And I think the biggest thing I want to think through here today with you guys is kind of 5 things of what you need to implement for the people management systems in your business. I kind of look at systems as there's 2 different types in your business. There's operating systems, which is your estimating software, the way you operate internally. And then there's people management systems, which are the systems and the tools that we use to manage people in our business. And I think if I had to ask, and I've kind of asked around in this, I know this came up on our podcast last week with Nick and Michael briefly, 2 weeks ago. And I know we've had this come up in a couple different discussions here recently, but like, if I had to say what's one word that boils down people management systems in a successful business, I believe the common word here would be structure. We have to have structure in place. We have to have ways to measure things. We have to have expectations to set with people. And so today's episode, I'm going to dive through 5 things that you need to have in place for each of the key employees in your business. And I would say this could go all the way down to crew leads for sure, even down to your painters as well. But I really want to key in on some of the leadership positions as we talk through this, but understand how this can apply to every area of your business, every role in your business. And it's something you should have very well dialed in. So I hope it helps. Thanks for plugging in. This is the Elite Business Advice Podcast. All right, so this whole podcast is around the question, we know we need to manage people, but how? How do we do it effectively? How do we do it well? What are the successful companies doing in this area? And so I'm going to hit you with 5 things here, and I'm just going to dive right into it. Number 1, they have a good comp plan in place. Now, there's a couple arguments out there in the industry, and I don't think there's one that's right or wrong. I'll tell you where I stand at here before we go on to the second point. But a comp plan can be built-in accountability. Everything should be black and white. You did it or you didn't. There should never be any gray areas in a compensation plan. Some people will use the compensation plan as the only source of accountability, and I don't truthfully love that. And the reason why is the comp plans get really complex. One of our clients, I won't say who, I won't even say where they're at because you might figure it out. So I'm just going to say this. One of our clients has a very detailed compensation plan for their estimators, their project managers, and now their sales managers and ops managers. And this thing is insane. I understand why they're doing it. I don't hate that they wanted to do this. But trying to build a system to track the commissions and the way this all works is a complete nightmare, for lack of a better word. No offense if you guys hear this. I don't mean it like that, but in comparison to what we see throughout the industry, I like simplistic. Okay, and what I would say in this is you need to decide what should be a performance metric, is kind of an expectation for their job, and what should be a compensation metric for their role. So let me give you an example on this. Sales in itself is a compensation metric. Right? You're getting compensated based on the sales you make. How many Google reviews that you collect, in my opinion, isn't necessarily a compensation metric. Maybe there's bonuses attached to it, but it should just be an expectation of your job. Okay. And so as you're designing your comp plan, I like simplistic things. I like black and white things. I think Nick Slavic called it light switch things a couple weeks ago. but I want it to be simple. I understand, again, there's maybe some bonuses in there. Hey, if you get, our expectation is that you need to get at least 2 Google reviews every single week as a project manager. And maybe occasionally you set a bonus for a month, or maybe this is just a year-round thing that any month you get more than 8 Google reviews on your projects, you get a bonus, something like that. Not we're incentivizing an extra 1% for every on a job if you collect a 5-star Google review, right? Like you start adding all these things into it and it starts to complicate things, right? Now there's 7 different percentage points on how they, 3 different percentage points on how they can get their bonuses or their commissions, and 1% for this, 1% for this, 1% for this. And again, I like the build-in added accountability, but the question I would encourage you to ask yourself is, what should just be an expectation of the performance of their job, and what should we be compensating them for? And again, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer there. I just see the more detailed it is, the more complicated it is, and honestly for them, the more distracted they become. If you keep it very simple and you say, hey, for every job that hits our gross target of 50% gross profit, you get 2% as a project manager, you get 2% of the revenue of the job. Black and white. They have one goal, 50% GP, okay? Now, yes, they need to collect Google reviews, and yes, they need to make sure payments happen on time, and I'll talk about that in a second. But their one job is to hit 50% GP. That's the biggest thing you should care about. Google reviews are good. We need payment on time. But I want them to focus on what's most important, not have 4 different things they're focusing on with 8 jobs every week. It gets to be a little bit much. They may not excel at any of those. That's just my personal opinion on it. Again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I see a lot of successful companies do it both ways. I'm just a fan of simplicity and focus. Everything else is a performance expectation, which leads me into point number 2. You should have clear expectations of what is expected for them in their role. So an easy one here is to have KPIs, key performance indicators. These are things that can be measured on a weekly, monthly, annual basis. So a couple examples here might be for an estimator. We want to measure how many estimates are they doing per month. Yes, you can make the argument that might be dependent upon your marketing, right? Maybe there's a bigger conversation there. But if they're in charge of business development, hey, we need to do 5 self-generated estimates every month, right? Whatever the expectation is. We need to have an expectation for what their closing rate looks like. What's that percentage? We recommend 40% plus is a great spot where we want all of our estimators to be at. 50% is really ideal. How much do they sell every month, right? We need to have a bottom line minimum that, hey, you need to sell at least $80,000 a month. That's like our bare line. This is how you keep your job. 100K is the target, or 150K or 200K, wherever you're setting that expectation. And then we also need to have a good metric on what percentage of the jobs that they estimate that get sold and produced end up on budget, right? That number should be 80% plus, right? So again, for me, this isn't you can tie it in with compensation if you want, but for me, this is a metric, and we need to discuss performance, and we'll talk through that here at the last point on how do we get better. If you look at this and half their jobs are hitting budget and half of them aren't, that's a quality conversation. That's an expectation of their job, not necessarily part of their compensation. So again, just my personal preference there. Clear expectation KPI for your PMs. What percentage of jobs, again, finishing on budget? 80% plus is really a good target to be at. How many Google reviews did they get that month? How many of the jobs are being paid within 48 hours? Was there upsells included or change orders included because of the PM, right? That could maybe be kind of a bonus. That could be part of the compensation plan. But as far as KPIs, I want jobs on budget, Google reviews, paid within 48 hours, and then total monthly production. What did we produce this month, or what did you produce this month if you have multiple PMs? So we want to see those things, right? And again, for me, I'm looking at expectations, right? If we say, hey, you need to have 2 Google reviews every week, or 8 a month, whatever you want to say, 10 a month, set a number. And then it becomes a performance metric. In order to have that conversation, you need point number 3. I did kind of put this in a good order here. Interesting. Totally on purpose, as you can tell by my surprise. Number 3, we need a system for tracking. For me, what I look at is, how do we track and assess these metrics somehow in a scorecard or a spreadsheet, as I'm sure you're shocked I'm bringing up. We need to have a way to measure these things. We need to have a way to look at what is our closing rate? We need to have a way to look at in job costing, what is our gross profit? We need to see what percentage of jobs, and we have this available on our job costing sheet, what percentage of your jobs did hit budget by PM every month, right? Like, we need to see these things. We need to have a way in a scorecard to where all this data flows in together. I call it assigned accountability. I think at this stage in your business, you have to have assigned accountability. We have to know who's responsible for what. We have to know, what the expectations are, and we need to hold them accountable to it, right? And having very clear-cut black or white things really is the best thing you can do. I would even truthfully call a callback, until you really define what is a callback, as a kind of gray area metric that can be hard to enforce, right? And, what is a callback? Is it, we did the final walkthrough and then they called us back after? That to me makes sense. Is it, well, the customer wasn't home and then they found some touch-ups? Is that really a callback, or was that just because we couldn't do a walkthrough with them, right? Like, can be some gray areas. So when we talk about assigned accountability, I want black and white things. I want who's responsible for what. And then we have to have a system to track that. And that makes this whole system go around. I think one of the biggest issues, as I talked earlier about structure, that people struggle with is they have expectations. They may not get communicated. They surely don't get tracked and assessed. And then they kind of just let subpar performance win. And by win, I mean they actually end up losing. So I like having the systems where you can track it, you can assess it. It's black or white. You needed to sell 100K this month. How much did you sell? And then having that debrief, good or bad, if not. Okay. But accountability is key. They have to be accountable for their roles. It can't be, oh, well, you didn't sell 100K. It's okay. It's all right. Maybe next month, right? Like, there needs to be some more accountability in conversations, which leads me into point number 4, structured meetings. We have to have structured meetings with our people. I think this is true for crew leads as well, but especially for your leadership team. And again, I define leadership team as office manager, estimator, project manager. First thing you need to figure out is, what is your meeting cadence? How frequently are you having one-on-ones with each of these positions? I have a one-on-one every week with our full-time advisors, and then once every 2 weeks or once a month with our part-time people, depending on how many clients they work with. We found that a weekly one-on-one with each of our advisors is like a perfect amount. It's not too much. It's not too little. We can get through talking about business stuff. We can get through talking about our clients. We can kind of get through everything we need to have, right? And then you need to figure out, with these performance reviews on your KPIs, when are we assessing that? Right? It's good to always have one-on-one meetings, talk about upcoming projects, talk about issues, talk about things we can work on. But if we're never going back to what are the monthly goals? What was the previous month look like? You're missing out on a huge component of these people management systems. So when are we going to do that? I like doing the first week of the month. Whenever, if you say, hey, we do our team meetings every Monday. Okay. So, the first Monday of the month is our performance review. Again, if that is the first of the month, then maybe you bump that back a week, right? But make sure you've got a time to assess that, and then also assess what the goal is for the upcoming month. That's why I love taking that first meeting in the month to have those performance review KPIs. We also need to figure out a cadence for our team meetings, right? When are we doing an all hands meeting with our entire team, painters, everybody included? But also, when are we doing a team meeting with our leadership team? Is this a team meeting? Is this a handoff, sales to production, handoff meeting? If not, those can be two different things. What does that look like? Right? For us, we found that a team meeting every other week with all of our advisors is perfect. It's enough time for us to, I'm not wasting their time. We did it weekly for a little bit. It was just too much. We didn't need a team meeting every single week. Now, there's periods in which we'll have an extra one, right? Leading into the Elite Business Retreat, maybe leading up to PCA Expo. There's different points in our business that we might need an extra team meeting, and we'll just schedule it when we know that there's enough going on that weekly is fine. But for the most part, every other week works well for us. It was actually funny because we had to cancel one 2 weeks ago because Stuart was on vacation. I was traveling for an industry event. So we just canceled it. Didn't, again, have a ton going on. And then we just had one the other day. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's been a month, guys. We have so much to talk about. And we got through like 80% of it, but I was like, see, once a month is not enough. Like, again, one-off situations is okay. We try to move them and, move stuff around if we can, if we know we're gonna have to cancel. It was just a weird week. So the second piece of structured meetings, though, is what is the agenda? What are we covering in these meetings? What needs to be discussed? There needs to be kind of a plan. There needs to be things we go through, each week, each month. What does that look like, right? Reviewing last month's job costing, or reviewing last week's job costing. What are we on track for this week as far as scheduled production revenue if you're doing this with the PM, right? Do we have the next 2 or 3 weeks scheduled out at our production benchmarks, right? Do we foresee any problems coming up? Like, what are we talking about to help make sure that they're on track for success in their business, in your business, in their role? And then lastly, number 5, and again, parallels perfectly, completely intentional. Let me be very clear on that. Coaching and support. At this level, you become a coach. You become a leader. You've always been a leader of your company, but at this point, you're coaching project managers. You're coaching estimators to success. And this is a lot different than when you're doing estimating or doing project manager, because you have to figure out, how do I connect with this person to help them become the best version of themselves? How do I connect with this person to where they fit in perfectly into the puzzle pieces, into our company, into the role they need to be in? And that's what gets hard at this level. The biggest question I have is, how do we coach them when things aren't going well, right? They have a $100,000 sales goal, and 2 months in a row, they're coming in at 50K. Right? Now, if it is truly an opportunity, a marketing problem, then I don't know that you can put that on your salesperson. But more times than not, we'll blame it on marketing, but it's actually the salesperson's fault. Right? What is their closing rate? How do we have those conversations? Then what do you do from there? Do you go on a couple estimates with them? Do you sit down and do some follow-up phone calls with them to help problem solve and identify maybe where some tripping points are? Then you sometimes have to get micro with it. And I think that's a big thing. We want to hire people, and then we want to delegate. And yes, that is a big part to scaling a business. However, that being said, it's not the greatest way, because we tend to hire and then over-delegate and never follow up and never check in and never figure out how to support them. And then we just get mad that they're only selling 500K, but we really haven't done anything to help them on their journey and become better at their role. My mentor, Dan Martell, always says, a lot of people think that it's a people problem when really in reality it's a process problem. You can't blame the person until the process is so dialed in that it's obviously a people problem. And I'll even take that a step further, because I completely agree with what he says there. But I'll even say you can't even say it's a people problem until, I don't have another P here, but until you've gone through and tried to coach and support them. Right? We want to say, well, the process is dialed in. Our sales process is flawless. Our SOP's, great. Our office does it. They set it up well. So the process isn't the issue. It's the person. You might be right. But until you've tried to coach and support them to become better in that role, to adapt into that system and process, you can't blame the person. You got to blame yourself. And that's what most people aren't willing to do. I said it. I'm not sorry. So ask them directly, what can I do to support you better? You want to build this two-way communication. We've talked about this on the 30, 60, 90-day quarterly reviews with new employees and 90 days every quarter with your existing ones. We want to build two-way communication. We always want to ask them this question. But you want to know this from your estimators. How can I better support you? Where do you feel like I'm falling short as a leader? We're falling short as a company. Do we need a better system in place? Do we need a better phone call scheduling SOP to set you up better for when you show up at the estimate? Do we need a sales aid, a video, a PDF, something to go out between the time that it gets scheduled at the office and you show up at their door? What needs to happen to better support them in their role, either from you as a leader or from the company as a tactical system, SOP, something along those lines? And so those are the 5 things. I want you to think about that. What is it? Is it comp plan? Is it better expectations? Is it a way for tracking and measuring these things? Is it having structured meetings, or is it following up on being a coach and a leader and a support system for them? I'd love to know, as we post a social clip today, we'd love to know, what do you need to work on heading into 2026? That might even give us some thoughts for some future episodes. So feel free to share on our social media. Shoot me an email, chris@elitebusinessadvisors.com. If you're one of our clients, shoot me a text or a Slack message. I would love to know which one of these 5 things can be most important for you to manage your people as you head into 2026. Thanks for plugging into this week's episode. I hope you're able to take a few nuggets away from it to implement into your business. Remember, knowledge without implementation is useless. If you're curious about what we do and how we help painting contractors all over North America, schedule a free business analysis meeting with us at www.elitebusinessadvisors.com. Our entire team of advisors have ran and managed painting companies just like myself and are here to help support you on your journey. We have packages available for contractors at every stage of business, from flying solo and just starting out, all the way to multi-million-dollar businesses. And lastly, if you love this episode, please leave us a rating and a review. It helps others on the platform find our podcast, and it could be the best blessing that's ever happened to them thanks to you. Thanks for plugging in, and we'll see you back for next week's episode.
Paint Ed podcasts are produced by the Painting Contractors Association and are made possible by members and industry partners. To find out more about the upcoming educational opportunities or for more information about joining the PCA, visit pcapainted.org.